Thursday Night Football is back.
Touchdown.
And it's on Prime Video.
Such a game changer.
It all kicks off this Thursday with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins in an AFC East showdown with football's best party, teeing up tonight. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. It's the Bills and the Dolphins, Thursday, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
This song goes out to my new best pal, PayPal. Now that I get 5% cash back with my PayPal debit card every month on the category I choose, my PayPal and I, we're going everywhere together because I want to pay with you everywhere. I pay with PayPal at the shoe store, the wind chime store, the .com store, all the stores. Oh, I don't just pay, PayPal.
Terms apply. See PayPal app. This card is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International, Inc.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. John Schmeelk, Matthew Citak with you. The phone number, 201-939-4513. We'll take your calls for the next hour talking Giants football. We're not going to go through the whole rigmarole and game recap from Sunday. We know that Paul and Howard did that yesterday, but I did finish rewatching the game this morning. I have a couple notes and just kind of additional things to what some of the obvious stuff is that they talked about that I want to add to here. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. So, look, guys, first and foremost, big picture, 28-6, terrible game all around, extremely disappointing. If you told me, and if you listened to me last week, that the offense would have came out and scored 6 points, and by the way, the only reason they got 3 of those 6 is because the defense gave them the ball deep inside Vikings territory, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I would have thought you were crazy. But lo and behold, that's what it was. And bad throws, drops, pressure, guys not getting open, all that together, it was just a poor performance on offense. And then on defense, Sam Darnold, his first 11 passes he completed, moved up and down the ball, not a lot of big plays. You only had that one takeaway early. Didn't stop the run, didn't do well in the red zone, 2 of the staples of the Shane Bowens defense before he got here. Just all around, Matt, a poor game all around for the team. And Brian Daboll was asked during his post-game presser if there was anything he thought the team did well he could kind of hang his hat on walking out of the game. He said, no, not really. Yesterday he had his press conference, said, yeah, a couple things here or there, but it's not like he was pointing out a lot of positives in his press conference yesterday either. So a poor game, poor performance all around, and if it doesn't get better, they're going to start the year 0-2. So luckily it's just week 1, it's just one game, but you got to play better if you want to beat the Commanders this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely not the way the team wanted to start the season by any means. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
Yeah, it was both sides of the ball was just, it was just rough. It was the first game of the season. Everyone always talks about how it takes a couple weeks into the season to really look like, the team that you're actually going to have throughout the year. But that's still not an excuse. You need to, come out from week 1 and play to win. Every game matters at this point.
Vikings look just fine in week 1.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what exactly you're going to bring up, but just very briefly, I guess.
Throw it at me. What do you got?
I guess first on the offensive side of the ball, it was clear. First of all, Brian Flores, an amazing defensive coordinator. Very, very skilled defensive coordinator. And it was clear, and Brian Daboll spoke about this, the Vikings defense did a lot of things that the Giants offense was not expecting. I mean, we spoke last week about how Brian Flores' defenses are very aggressive and like to blitz and come at you. They barely did that. They barely did that on Sunday. And it was clear that the Giants were expecting that, and it just didn't happen. And it left, with less blitzers and guys running at the quarterback, there's more guys in coverage, and that seemed to cause a little bit of, I don't know, confusion, but just difficulty for Daniel Jones in the passing game.
You hit the first nugget I wanted to touch on. Perfect segue here, Matt. 38% blitz rate for the Vikings, which is much lower than their 50%. But here's the trick, guys. Of those 38% blitzes, 30% of those were simulated, which means they still only rushed 4. They just You know, it's like, like in zone blitzes, you rush the linebacker but drop the lineman in this case. So stuff like that where they only brought 4. So rushing 5 or more, it was really more like 25%, give or take, in terms of the number of guys that they brought. So again, blitz rate was down, and I think, and Brian Dable kind of referenced this yesterday, I was surprised at how much big personnel the Giants played in this game. They played 2+ tight ends over the course of the game. It's at least in the first half of the game, because once you get behind, you're going to switch things up. In the first half, 2 or more tight ends on 48% of their plays. It's a lot of double tight ends and triple tight ends. And by the way, Theo Johnson played the most snaps of all the tight ends, 86%. Daniel Bellinger and Chris Manners are both in the 20. So it's pretty clear that Theo Johnson has established himself as a starter early. But again, and Brian Dable said, we thought they were going to pressure more. We saw a lot of max protect stuff early in this game too. So you're only sending 2 or 3 guys out in the routes. And when teams are going to drop 2 safeties deep, you're not going to get guys open if you're sending 2 or 3 guys out on the routes and they're playing 2 safety deeps and not bringing pressure. So I agree. I think that was part of it. I'm with you. That was interesting, I thought. Then you look at the pressure that was allowed on Daniel Jones. It was the pressure rate was around 40%, which is not what you like. But then if you look at some of the PFF numbers and they break it down by the offensive linemen and the linebacker and the tight ends and the running backs, they only charged that group for 12 pressures in the game. Well, then you say, well, hold on a second, John. You said there were 21 pressures. How could they only credit 12 to those guys? That means it's on the quarterback the other 9. That's what that means. And I did think rewatching the game, and Brian Dable was asked this yesterday. He didn't really comment on it. And look, I'm no pass protection expert. But I thought there were a number of times where there was a fairly clean pocket, and it's probably because Daniel Jones has not been used to playing in fairly clean pockets much over the last year. I thought he ran out of some clean pockets into trouble. You look at those same pressure stacks that PFF puts out, and again, some of this it's subjective, where whoever's doing the analysis is making this call on their own. Daniel Jones got sacked 5 times, only 1 sack credited to the Giants' protection, which means they're putting those other 4 on the quarterback, on the stuff that he did. So I thought that was another part of it where, there were some inaccurate passes too. There were some drops, but the pocket presence, Matt, and again, maybe this comes back from, first full regular season game coming back from the ACL where you're going to have to kind of get a feel for the pocket again. I thought some of the pocket feel stuff wasn't the best.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, you nailed it, that there were a couple of plays where Daniel Jones had time. He had a clean pocket. And again, as you said, maybe it's because since he's come here, that really has not basically ever been the case, where he's throughout a game really had, a lot of time to, go through his reads, find an open receiver. I don't want to say he panicked, but he clearly
he felt like he had to move before he actually had to move. His internal clock was a little bit faster than what the defense might dictate.
Yes, which the last couple of years he's needed to have that fast internal clock. But that really wasn't the case on Sunday, especially because, as we already discussed, the Vikings weren't really blitzing at all. Weren't really sending much pressure. So
they played 0 coverage, by the way. This is one I forgot. 0 times in the game, the Vikings. They played cover 1 twice. So they played 2 safeties deep. I have their cover things right here. They played 2 safeties deep, I think, over about 70% of the plays. Just to give you an idea of why they couldn't make plays over the top, that's why. Didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
No. One thing I did notice and kind of felt throughout the game is that, we've spoken so much about the revamped offensive line. And again, part of this maybe has to do with the fact that the Vikings didn't really send blitzes, but I thought the line held up pretty well overall.
It was okay.
It had its moments, obviously, where they allowed some pressures, allowed some hits on Daniel, but I just thought overall as a unit, this being the best line the Giants have had in years, I just thought that was very obvious in week 1.
Yeah, and it's funny, you look at the rankings and the pressure rate, and they were still 26th ranked in terms of pressure rate allowed. It was something like 40%. But again, we talked about where those would get credited to. I thought I thought Andrew Thomas was good as usual. He had 1 bad play, I think, on a run snap that I saw. That was it. It was actually one of those Daniel keepers where he kind of got beat outside a little bit. Illuminor I thought was solid. If there was some leakiness, I thought it was inside from the guards in the center. They got Grenard one-on-one once on a play. Grant Van Roten got called for a holding call on that one play, which, by the way, he went back and he tackled the guy that beat JMS, so that might be on Van Roten, but the guy he tackled is the guy that got around Schmidt, so I think he was trying to help out his teammate in that spot. So Runyon got beat on one spin move over the course of the game. So if there was some leakiness, Matt, I'm with you. I thought it was inside, and some of those things could have been a little bit better. But I agree. Despite the 5 sacks, and you look at the top line numbers and the quarterback hits, and you're like, oh boy, it really didn't look like it got any better. I think when you really do watch through the game, I do think it was better than it was, especially last year.
Yeah, and honestly, you mentioned Thomas. I think having him back to 100% health is the reason why the line looked so much better. I mean, Andrew Thomas on Sunday looked like 2022 Andrew Thomas.
Oh, he looked great.
He looked like the all-pro left tackle that the Giants gave a big contract to last year. And if he can stay healthy and continue playing this way, that is going to elevate the line as a whole, especially when you now have Jermaine Illuminor on the right side who, not going to say he played up to the level of Andrew Thomas because, again, Andrew Thomas is an all-pro and our best offensive lineman, but he held his own on the right side and really, did a pretty good job for his first game on a new line. And having those two at the two bookends of your offensive line, I do think is going to help the offense perform better moving forward.
First down offense, another note that I took here. A couple of our media platforms are able to allow us to sort by down in terms of EPA. For fans that don't know, EPA is an expected points per play metric. So it kind of tells you, well, how many points do you help or hurt yourself on any given play? It can be anywhere from, negative to positive depending on what happens on the play, right? So on first downs, Matt, in this game, the Giants' EPA per drop back was negative 0.5, which means every time they threw the ball on first down, they lost a half a point. Now, part of that is the pick 6 to Van Ginkel. So that's minus 6 points right there. So that's going to skew that a little bit. Then you look at the running, and that was not a surprise, worst in the league. If you look at the running game, they were 5th worst in the league, negative 0.27 EPA, yards per rush. So when you're not doing well on first down, and we talked about how much the Vikings were playing those 2 safeties deep, right? If you're playing 2 safeties deep, you got to run the ball on first down. They're daring you to. Play action downfield throws don't work on first down if they're playing cover 6, quarters, cover 2, because the safeties aren't crashing, right? And I think it's a little bit different. The one thing I think where Saquon, I know some of the analytics say this is not the case. I still do believe that when Saquon's the guy you're faking the handoff to, teams are going to pay a little bit more attention to that than when you're faking the handoff to not Saquon Barkley or not an elite running back. So I do think when teams come out here, and maybe this is how teams are going to play the Giants early in the year now. Maybe they're going to say, all right, Giants, we know you got Malik Neighbors now. You got Speed and Slayton and Hyatt. We're going to make you prove to us you could run the ball on early downs. Well, you got to do better running the ball. And overall, the rushing efficiency was okay, slightly below average. Not a lot of explosives. If teams are going to play as much 2 safeties deep as the Vikings did against you in this game, you got to run the ball better on early downs and try to get them out of that, and that can create some explosives.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they brought Devin Singletary in for a reason. Again, he's not Saquon Barkley. I don't think anyone expects him to be. It's been made very clear over the last couple of months, but he's more than capable of, first of all, handling a full workload. He was on the field a ton. I know, Tyrone Tracy came on the field a little bit, Eric Gray as well, but it was mainly Devin Singletary out there, and the coaching staff and the offense as a whole have full trust and faith in him. So I'm with you. Give him the ball early, and try to gain a couple of yards on first down, and just put yourself in a better situation for second down and eventually third down as well.
Yeah, correct. It's all connected. And honestly, I thought Singletary played pretty well. There weren't really, I didn't look it up. I probably should have. I don't remember many negative rushing plays in the game, to be totally honest with you.
I don't really either.
Which is good. We've had a lot of plays in the backfield in years past, but you didn't have a lot of those chunk plays either. So just something to keep with, 3.5 yards per carry over the course of the game, something like that, right?
Singletary was 3.7.
3.7.
As a team, 3.5.
So, it's one of those, you ran the ball okay, but when a team's going to show you those type of defensive looks, I think you have to run the ball better than that, given the looks the defenses were giving you. I'm not going to give DJ a lot of grief on the Van Ginkel play. I went back and I looked at the All-22. Van Ginkel about 3 or 4 seconds before the snap, looks out there, sees the 4 wide receiver bunch. He takes an extra half step to widen his stance, and I think he just made a really good play reading that. As a quarterback, you're not trained to read that play. You're trained to take the snap, turn, and throw it. That is not a read the defense, make the throw. That's the play. Like, I talked to a couple people, not coaches, but people that know stuff about quarterback play. That's the play there. It's you get the ball, you turn, and you throw. I really think that's just a great play by Van Ginkel. The other interception on 4th down, look, I look back at the All-22. There weren't any other guys that were really open on that play. There was the teeniest of windows. You could have gotten it into Slayton, but look, it's 4th down. You're trying to get into the end zone. You got to get the ball out. Obviously, you don't want to turn it over there, but given the circumstances, I get it, but you're in the red zone. You want to try to get 7 there, and obviously the pass offense, generally speaking, was not good enough.
No, it definitely wasn't. I will just note one, I guess, slightly positive of the passing attack was that Malik Neighbors looked great.
Oh, he did?
I mean, he did have...
I was going to bring... 100% of the snaps, by the way, for Neighbors did not leave the field.
That is impressive. He did have a drop. You know, cannot just blow that off. But overall, he played really well. And something that I actually thought was very encouraging, Next Gen Stats put this out, that Malik Neighbors traveled a total of 172 yards in pre-snap motion.
That's a good one.
Which was the 6th most by any player in the NFL in week 1. And, you know, we see teams across the league do this. They put their top receiver in motion pre-snap to kind of get him moving. And then the ball ends up, you know, in that guy's hands at the end of the play. So if you look at it, he generated the 3rd most receiving yards on plays that he was in motion, trailing only Cooper Kupp and A.J. Brown.
All right.
That is some pretty good company. And just in terms of this week's matchup, the Commanders allowed the 3rd most passing yards on plays with motion this past weekend. So that is an encouraging sign for Malik Neighbors. I mean, we've known that, you know, most likely he was going to be the top option in the passing game. Wan'Dale Robinson did have more targets in week 1, but Malik Neighbors led the team in receiving. I think we both expect that to be a pretty consistent theme throughout the season, each and every week. So I just looking a little bit forward to this week in the matchup against the Commanders, whose pass defense definitely leaves a lot to be desired as well. I think it's just a good matchup for Malik Neighbors and Brian Dable to scheme Malik open even more for this weekend's game.
Yeah, we'll touch on the Commanders though later in the week, but their game was just about as rough as the Giants game was this week. So both those teams will be desperate for a victory in week number 2.
Thursday Night Football is back.
Touchdown.
And it's on Prime Video.
Such a game changer.
It all kicks off this Thursday with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins in an AFC East showdown with football's best party, teeing up tonight. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. It's the Bills and the Dolphins, Thursday, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Real quickly on the defense, Matt, I want to hit on a couple things here. They actually got themselves into some pretty decent positions. You know, the special teams started a drive on the 1-yard line. Then a little play action. You get 8 yards right off the bat. They get right out of that, you know, the shadow of the end zone on 2nd down, which you don't like. On another drive, the Giants had the Vikings in a 2nd and 17. They eventually convert 2 plays later. That was the Adoree Jackson pass interference penalty, which I didn't love the call because I thought he got his head around before he ran into the receiver, but I understand seeing the contact, and he might have started to make contact before he turned his head. I get it. It's a bang-bang play, but I could see that one going either way.
The receiver kind of grabbed Adoree's face mask on that?
That I didn't see. I rewatched it on the All-22 a bunch of times. I didn't see the TV copy again, so that could be true. I didn't see that. So didn't love it, but it is what it is. And then the other touchdown drive, you had 2 runs of more than 10 yards on the drive, which you don't like. So, and you had the chunk play. Deonte Banks allowed the touchdown, which I thought he actually had pretty good coverage on that slant, right? I thought it was just a really good throw. Then he was in cover 3, I believe, and he got beat over the top. He kind of let the guy get behind him a little bit to Jefferson on the deep pass down the sideline. So, again, not enough pass rush over the course of the game. When I went back and rewatched, they double-teamed Dexter Lawrence a ton. Despite that, he was still responsible for the two of the few stops the Giants defense had. He's the one that hit Darnold's arm that caused the interception. He had the only sack in the game. He had a 40% pressure rate in the game, which is insane. Just insane. But look, the outside guys, Ojulari, Thibodeau, Burns, they only had a couple pressures each. They did chip a lot on the outside. I will say that when I rewatched the tape. But look, when you're playing from behind, it's tougher because the offense can dictate what they want to do, whether it's play action pass, not take long drop backs. It helps. But both of us talked this season, Matt, if this defense was going to be successful, it's going to be in the back of that pass rush. It wasn't impactful, consistent enough, spare for Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, well, for starters, Dexter Lawrence, similar to our conversation about Andrew Thomas before, looked like the normal all-pro Dexter Lawrence that we have all come to love over these last couple of years. He led the team with, what was it, seven pressures? According to Next Gen Stats,
sure,
7 pressures
works for me.
19 pass rushes, which is just insane. And as you mentioned, that's with him getting double teamed more often than any other player on the field. I thought the pass rush, I didn't think it was awful, honestly. There's another stat here from Next Gen Stats that the Giants used a 4-man rush on 77% of Sam Darnold's dropbacks on Sunday. And on those plays, they generated a 45% pressure rate, which was the 3rd highest among any team in the league.
I wonder how many of those was Dexter Lawrence.
Most of them. Now, Next Gen Stats, well, see, this is the thing. Next Gen Stats, Pro Football Focus, I feel like those are the two big, analytics, outlets that people use, and they both have different numbers when it comes to Sunday's game in terms of the Giants' pass rush. PFF has Brian Burns down for, I believe it's 1 pressure.
Two is what I had in my numbers, but
2.
yeah.
Next Gen Stats had him down for 5 pressures. So slightly better numbers.
And now I could tell you how. Do you want to know how they're calculated differently? I've actually asked people about
I would love to know this.
So Next Gen Stats for fans, and fans are good for fans to know too. They do it purely based on player distance from the quarterback.
Okay.
So they say if the player is, I don't know what the cutoff is, but X number of feet from the quarterback, it counts as a pressure. Now, the problem with that sometimes is that, well, what if the offensive lineman's between the pass rusher and the quarterback? So PFF, they actually have people physically watching the game, and they determine if they think the player impacted the quarterback on the play, then they'll give them credit for that pressure. So
PFF is, I get, slightly more of a judgment call.
Correct. But NGS can sometimes be misleading because it's based only then on, distance and using the player tracking data. So I'm sure some weeks NGS is better. Some weeks PFF will be better. But they do calculate them different ways, which is why those numbers can be very different sometimes.
Gotcha. Well, overall speaking, despite the, discrepancy and how many pressures Brian Burns might have had, there's no doubt that the Giants need their edge rushers to get more pressure on the quarterback.
And Burns did force a holding penalty on one play in the game. He had a nice inside spin move on another. But, again, you did not force – we talked about trying to force Sam Darnold into mistakes in this game. You just never really – forced him into, and you never felt like Sam Darnold was in mode. He just felt very comfortable. And now part of that score, right? You're up 14 early, 11 points early. You're not gonna feel pressure to make plays. You can check down on an 8-yard pass on the 3rd and 15. You don't feel like you need to complete that first down. So that's part of it. And
another part, which we talked about last week, is the fact that the Vikings have a good set of tackles. Christian Darrisaw just signed a massive extension, I think like a month ago.
And he was good in the game, too.
He was very good. Brian O'Neill is a very solid tackle. This was, I think, one of the better tackle duos the Giants will face, I think, at least early on in the season.
We said coming into the game, the pressure was going to have to come from the inside because the tackles were good. And that's pretty much what happened with Dexter, right?
Yeah. So this is going to, moving forward, the Giants are going to need, obviously, Brian Burns, who was their big offseason acquisition, and Kayvon Thibodeau, their number 5 overall pick 2 years ago. They're going to need them to generate more pressures. I mean, clearly with Shane Bowen's defense, when you're only sending 4 guys, you need your 2 edge rushers to hit home. It doesn't have to happen every play, but it obviously has to happen, a little more often than it did on Sunday.
The Commanders do not have the offensive tackles that the Vikings have.
They definitely
do
not.
And Kayvon Thibodeau, some of his bigger games last year did come against the Commanders. So next week I would expect both Thibodeau and Brian Burns to have a much better and more consistent production.
Definitely.
Ready to do some calls?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. We don't have to talk about the 5K or the Fan Fest anymore because they happen, so I don't have to read that copy, which is great. And by the way, your fans were great at the Fan Fest. You showed up. The place was packed. You did a great job. Hope you enjoyed that drone show. Hope I didn't oversell that to you. I thought it was awesome. Just kind of how I described it. So make sure you check that out. Giants Huddle Podcast, real quick, folks. The Rapid Reaction is up there right now with Dottino and Casillas from Sunday. Do we have the Coughlin up there yet, Pearson?
Coughlin is up.
Oh, so we have a Papa's Perspective up on that feed. Remember, the Giants Huddle Podcast feed is now the Giants Podcast Network feed. So Papa's Perspective is up there. Bob Papa sat down with Tom Coughlin. Was it 20 minutes, Pearson? 15? How long did he have going? 25. Whoo! He did 25 minutes with Coach Coughlin, and frankly, he could have done like 2 hours. It was supposed to be 15, and Tom gave like 6-minute answers to every question. He was wonderful. He was so into it. So go check that out, talking about some of the players he coached that are in the Giants 100. All right, let's go to the phones. 201-939-4513. You've been waiting patiently. Thank you very much. Let's go to Rich in Virginia. Then it'll be Jonathan, then Wilson. Rich, what's going on, man?
Good afternoon, John and Matt. By the way, your analysis of the offensive line is spot on. I'm watching Bobby Skinner's offensive line review now, and you guys nailed it and doing a great job as always. So I'm not talking about. I'm not going to talk about yesterday's game. My thought is here on a macro approach, taking a real hard look, an honest evaluation of this Giants as a franchise, especially for the last 10 years. Let me give you a little background. You know, the late, great Wellington Mara, he knew he had a problem when people left the stands or didn't show up. You know, I'm one of the old-timers that has suffered through those years from 64 to 81. And those were bad years. So he knew he had a problem there. And through the urging of Pete Rozelle, Wellington hired George Young. And look what happened. Okay? So, in my opinion, I spent 41 years in the Air Force. I've been a squadron commander a couple of times. It all comes down to leadership. And right now, and I love Brian Dable, don't get me wrong, but he's not, it appears to me, he's not the same guy that went for that 2-point conversion 2 years ago in Tennessee. That swagger isn't there. And believe me, every one of those players is looking at him as a leader. He runs that team, and they feed off them.
Well, Rich, I will say this real quickly.
Rich,
yeah, Rich, real quick. I'll just say this real fast. His demeanor in front of the team and to the players is 180 degrees different than what his demeanor is towards the media when he talks to them. This guy is. I'm just making sure you know that. Yep, got it.
I know that. But we don't see that, obviously. I know that. The Giants fans aren't stupid. But the other thing that fans, and I know I'm not the only one that feels this way or thinks this way, is, my gosh, his press conferences, I hate to say it, are becoming Joe Judge-like. I mean, come on. So
no, but Rich, here's the thing: the players could not give all. Here's what the players care about in the press conference: did the coach rip me publicly? And do you know what Brian Dable never does? Says anything negative about players publicly. Do you know why it's boring? Because he never says anything about the players negatively publicly. Which, by the way, as much as it sitting through it, it's not a thrill a minute. But do you want the head coach to air the dirty laundry? Say this guy stunk because of this. This guy was terrible because of that. He's not going to do that.
I understand that, but that's, again, I'm attacking this from a holistic point of view.
Right.
In the Air Force, we have internal metrics of inspection and external, and that's done on a constant basis.
Of course.
So the Giants are in the business to win football games, and let's face it, they've had 2 playoff runs in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah, it has not been good. No question. We know.
And so what I am requesting from a holistic standpoint for John Myra and Steve Tisch to push themselves away from the table, and either they do it themselves internally or hire somebody to say, do we have, number one, is there a problem in the personnel operations, in the football operations? Identify a problem, and B, identify a solution. That's it. And that's how we work it in the military, and it works. Because this fan base, you got guys like me, you got guys like Len, you got, even Charlie, been around forever. I've watched every game 61. It hurts our heart because the Giants are a big part of our life. To see a product that was out there on Sunday. Not only that, it's the thing that's more frustrating is it's what we call the same old Giants. It's the same stuff that's going over and over. But they have to me. If I was in charge, I would take a really holistic evaluation of the whole system and find out what the heck is going on.
Yeah, Rich. Rich. Appreciate the call. Good stuff. We got a lot of guys on. I'll make sure we get to them. Isn't that what they did 2 years ago when they hired Joe Shane and Brian Dable?
Yeah, it is. That was, everyone talks about like the Giants way. That was a big pivot from what the Giants have historically done for a long time.
Do you know what Joe Shane's connection was to the Giants organization?
Working in the state of New York?
Zero. That's it. He worked in the state of New York. That was the extent of his connection to the Giants organization. Correct. So, Rich, I feel like they've done what you said. Now, I think that's a constant process. Are you always looking at that and again? Sure. But you aren't going to make any big decision or calls after one game of a football season.
For sure. And, to Rich's point, I mean, if it's easier for us to see it because we're inside the building every day and can actually physically see it with our own eyes. But the difference between 2 years ago and when Joe Shane, right after he started, compared to just 1 year prior, you can't compare the two in terms of so many big differences. But, even just like the draft room, some of the just technological advances and, pivots that Joe Shane took when he first took over, that was a big change, a very big change from what the Giants have had historically here in the front office. So they did do those big changes. Obviously Sunday's game did not go how anyone in this building would have liked. That is very clear. But as you said, like, it is one game. They're not going to rush and make any major drastic decisions after week one.
No, and they shouldn't. You can't. And I understand, look, I understand why the fans are upset and frustrated. They should be. They should not have been happy walking out of that building. But you cannot make rash decisions after one game or two games, for that matter.
It's a long season.
You can't. That's just the way. That's just the way the league is. All right, let's go to Jonathan in Westchester. He's up next. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, how are you?
We're good, man. What's up?
First time I've called in a while. Good to speak with you.
Thanks for calling in. What's up?
So, like your last caller, I wanted to take a step back and look at the big picture here.
Sure.
So I have a stat for you guys.
Yeah.
In the 15 years between 1996 and 2010, the Giants started the season 0-2 just twice. Those 2 years were 96 and 2007. In the 11 years between 2013 and 2023, the Giants started the season 0-2 8 times. So 2 out of 15 seasons and then 8 out of the last 11.
Yep, that sounds right. Not good.
Yeah. And so, I might be coming out of left field here, but, I'm wondering if it's not a coincidence that the Giants last held their training camp in Albany in 2012. There's a team bonding that occurs when you're away, with a group of guys, for 2 or 3 weeks. And, I'm wondering if the Giants missed that, and if there are any players listening right now, they might not, like that I'm saying this. I know that the guys didn't love being in those bunks, for weeks in the middle of the summer.
Yeah,
but
college dorms, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that's something to start thinking about again, and I personally, I much easier for me to make the trip to East Rutherford than to, trek all the way up to Albany. But, for the good of the team, maybe we sign another contract with Albany and start practicing up there again.
Hey, Jonathan, I'm not sure if fans are aware of this. They do actually, for the first 2 or 3 weeks of camp, I'm not sure when the actual cutoff date is for that, all the players are in the same hotel. So you are together here. The guys don't go home, like even the veterans, for the first 2-3 weeks of camp. So they try to mimic that as much as they can down here, even though they're not, sharing dorm rooms and Albany and stuff like that. And I get what you're saying. I missed Albany too. Albany was fun. It was a good time. My wife would not be thrilled if I was back up in Albany for 3 weeks in August every year. But look, Jonathan, I think the reason they started 0-2 more is because, frankly, the teams haven't been as good. I mean, compare the overall record for those two stretches of years, you're going to see a big difference too. You're not going to win games early in the year if you're not going to win a lot of games overall. But you're right. To put yourself consistently in these 0-2 holes, they're very difficult to climb your way out of them. 2 of those 11 years, no surprise, were 2016 and 2022 when the team made the playoffs, when they did not start 0-2. So, yes, it's connected, which, again, there's no such thing as a must-win game in Week 2 in the National Football League. But next week's darn important. You really need to come out of that game with a win because, Matt, look, we've seen it. You start 0-2. The NFL sends out the stats every year. I think your chance of making the playoffs was like 20%, something like that. It's just you put yourself in a hole that is hard to dig out of.
And it doesn't help this season when the Giants' schedule looks like it does from weeks 3 through, I think it's 8.
Yep, 6 straight games against teams that finished with 500 or better last year.
Yeah, there are some very tough games in that stretch. So, yeah, no one's going to downplay the importance of this weekend's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't realize that about the guys staying in the same hotel together in Jersey. So that's the whole team, or just the younger guys?
No, they have the whole team, including the vets, in a hotel for at least the first 2 weeks. It might be 3. I'm not sure when they release the guys, but they are all in the hotel together for the first couple weeks of camp.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, thanks, guys. You do a great job.
Appreciate you calling, Jonathan. Good stuff.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thursday Night Football is back.
Touchdown.
And it's on Prime Video.
Such a game changer.
It all kicks off this Thursday with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins in an AFC East showdown with football's best party, teeing up tonight. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. It's the Bills and the Dolphins, Thursday, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Let's go to Phil in North Carolina. He's up next. Hey, Phil.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
So a couple of things. Just last week when I heard Paul rip to shreds Sam Darnold.
I warned him. I warned him, Phil. I told him it would be his fault. I swear. I wish he was in the radio booth, Phil, when he was 11 of 11. I sent Citak a slack, and I said, Citak, I wish I was wrong about Sam Darnold, but it doesn't look like I was. And you're right. It is all Dottino's fault.
I also begged him to stop.
Yes, Pearson also begged him to stop. We all did, but he can't help himself. You know
I said it on air with him. I said it in the moment. I'm like, Paul, what are you doing?
So, no, I was definitely in Matt's side there, which, Matt's pretty, I try to be analytical, and Matt was very analytical about going through and Sam Darnold's trends and where he was, that he was actually improving the last 8 starts and all that stuff, and Paul was not hearing any of it. So, okay, yeah. So as far as, to me, it does look like Daniel is shot. Especially in terms of he was never had a strong pocket presence and was never really able to maneuver very well in a pocket. But it seems like it's really, really deteriorated the last 23 and this year so far.
Well, Phil, I want to see him in a second game. Look, it was his first regular season game since the ACL, coming off of a year where the protection was maybe some of the worst we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. I want to see him in week 2. He has a long history of success against the Washington Commanders. Again, famous last words. I feel like he could come out and have a much, much better game this week against, quite frankly, which is one of the teams in terms of overall talent in the back half of the defense. It's not towards the top of the league. So I don't want to say what you're saying now. Let's see what he does against Washington. I think he has an opportunity to have a pretty big bounce back game.
I hope so. And I'm not saying bench him now. What I thought yesterday was he gets a half. If that first half looks like this game, that's it.
Now, Phil, I will give you
perspective.
I get it. Let me give you a fair warning. What'd you think of him at halftime of the Arizona game last year in week 2?
That's the one. Yeah, same thing.
And he was bad in the first half of that Arizona game too. He was not good, and then the second half he lit the place on fire. So I don't think when they make a move here, Phil, it's going to be a halftime thing. I think it's going to be. That's a larger organizational decision when you're going away from a quarterback, and I don't think they're anywhere near making that decision. Just from my opinion, that's a big organizational decision. I think when that happens, it's going to be a bigger decision than just all right. Well, halftime, let's try to get a spark here. My feel for it is that's not how it's going to go. I could be proven wrong. I've been wrong many times. See week 1, but
yeah.
That's my feel for it at least.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. I don't think that's something that they will decide in the halftime just because of, potentially a slow start. I think that's going to be something heading into, whatever game week it is when they start preparations. If that's the decision they make down the road, then whoever it is that would be filling in would have the week to prepare as the starter. I don't think they're going to just pull him at halftime.
Assuming he's healthy, Phil, he will be the starting quarterback from start to finish against Washington.
Okay, good point. But looking at some of the advanced stats, I thought the offensive line didn't do horrible. I thought it was an improvement over last year.
Yeah, we agree.
Thought, generally,
we agree
for sure.
And so that's why I said, just the maneuvering in the pocket was atrocious. So. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate the call, man. 201-939-4513. The official Connected Giants TV app is called Giants TV. It brings original video content, game highlights on demand, and direct to Big Blue fans. It's free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. It's Giants TV. Just search for it. And Giant fans, you can still get tickets this year. Giants.com/tickets. I'm not sure if you can still do season ticket packages after 1 week. I'm sure they'll let you. They're not going to say no to season tickets. Individual tickets too. Giants.com/tickets. Go check that out. Wilson, I didn't mean to skip you third up. That's my bad. That was my fault. I apologize. What's going on, bud?
It's okay. How you guys doing?
We're good, man.
Hey, Wilson.
Hey, Johnny, listen. Before I start, right? I love you, right? And we mess around and I yell, I scream,
of course.
Stuff, but everything is respectful.
Of course.
Now, the reason I say this is because you're not gonna like what I tell you, and you might get, and probably you're gonna get mad at me. But like I said,
Sure. What do you got? It's okay, Wilson.
all right.
What do you got?
Can't be the worst we've ever heard.
No, Matt. Listen, real quick, and I'm gonna start with you. With all due respect, don't give me any stats. Don't give me PPF. Don't give me none of that stuff. I have because with my 2 eyes, I saw the game on television, and it was a disgrace. It was a performance that I'm embarrassed to actually be a Giants fan. Okay, that's number one. Number 2 is Daniel Jones. I love Daniel, but he's broken. He's mentally broken. I said to you guys, if you don't want him, he knows you don't want him. Get a 5th-round pick for him. Get something for him, because you cannot play the quarterback position when you know you are a lame duck quarterback, right? Because all you're thinking is not to make a mistake. You can't play the position like that. That's why you throw balls. You miss guys who throw balls on the ground because you can't play the quarterback if you're thinking about not making a mistake.
Wilson, real quick though, Daniel had his best year as a pro right after they decided not to pick up his 5th-year option in 2022 when you're in a similar situation, and that's when he played his best.
Okay. Well, Johnny, for what I see, he's broken. And I like him. I think Daniel Jones could be a top 10 quarterback, but in New York, he's not. I'm praying. I'm hoping that he could turn around with it. I don't see it. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But listen, if I you're not gonna answer, but this team is not a well-coached team. It's horrendously coached team because Brian Daboll is horrendous. I know you don't agree with me, and this is the first time and the only time I'm gonna bring it up. If I call you guys again,
Wilson, go ahead. Don't get defensive.
Okay.
I'm letting you say your piece. Go ahead. It's fine.
Okay, all right. To me, he's horrendous. The last 26 games, he's 6-19-1. Because if Brian Flores is doing something differently, and you're a good head coach, maybe if you're such a great head coach, can you adjust a little? But forget about that. I said this. He started 7-1. After he started 7-1, he's 6-19-1. And last year, the same thing. Embarrassed in front of national television. Well, the weather was no good. What's the excuse this past Sunday? The weather was too nice. The team was not ready to play. and the team is not a well-coached team. I don't care what everybody tells me. It's not a well-coached team. And when Daniel Jones is shown out the door, he's got to follow him because he's obviously it's very easy to blame Daniel Jones because at the end of the year, if we win 5 games, then what's going to happen? Well, it was Daniel Jones' fault. You're going to get another quarterback. Then another 2 more years. We're going to blink our eyes. 5 years are going to go by, and we're going to be in the same boat. All right? So 2 years, if you give a coach 2 years, if he shows improvement, if they don't win against Washington on Sunday, where do you see another win, Johnny and Matt? Do you see another win?
Wilson, you never know how this goes at the NFL season. Nobody thought the Giants were going to beat the Packers in December last year.
Oh, Johnny, okay.
Thank you, Wilson.
Johnny, but, all right, John.
Appreciate the comment. Look, we obviously disagree with you. We don't think you're correct about that. He won Coach of the Year 2 years ago for a reason. Last year, he managed to win 6 games and win 3 straight with Tommy DeVito as his quarterback. Was week 1 good? Nope. Brian Daboll said himself at the post-game press conference, nothing was good, and it starts with me.
Yes, that's the exact quote I was going to bring up. He literally said, we can do everything better, but it all starts with me. So it's not like he's deflecting blame. He's holding himself accountable along with the team. Everything needs to get better, and Brian Daboll is the first one to admit that.
Yeah, and Wilson, you're not going to move on from Brian Daboll after 2 weeks. I mean, geez, I don't even think you're moving on. I would be blown full off my chair. Whoa, if it happens mid-season or anytime during the season.
Same.
Blown away. You don't want to be that team that changes your coaches all the time, all right? Look, I don't want to regurgitate why last year was such a disaster. We know it had everything to do with personnel and injuries. You know, once all your good players are hurt, it's hard to win football games. It's just kind of how it goes. And your offensive line is one of the worst in the history of the league. But Brian Daboll is a good offensive coach. He proved to be a good offensive coach at many different stops along the way in the National Football League. Won a national championship at Alabama. He's done this for a long time. He knows how to coach offensive football. Was week 1 good? No. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
It's a long season. There's a reason why they play 17 games. The season isn't over after 1 week.
Let's go to Brian in Pittsburgh. He's up next. Brian, what's going on?
Hey, not too much, guys. How are you doing?
We're good.
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to touch on a couple quick points. So a previous caller, Rich, had brought up 2 things. First, he brought up watching a YouTube guy and treating that like a pretty reliable source, which I just wanted to touch on because I believe he had done that on a previous show too that I watched, and I could swear you could see Paul bite his tongue so hard I thought blood was going to start rushing out of his mouth.
that Brian, I probably wasn't on with him, but I could imagine in my head exactly what Paul looked like as he mentioned
oh my God.
one of these guys. Yes, fair.
It was so too much, and I just want to give fans just remember whenever you're considering a source, consider qualifications and motivations. A lot of these YouTube guys, even entertaining ones, that some of the stuff might look pretty good. A lot of times they don't have the qualifications you think they do. So whenever you're taking their stuff, just, kind of take it with a grain of salt. And then, he had also mentioned too, how the press conferences with the players, the coaches, everything has seemed to have gotten a little more, I don't want to say antagonistic or just a little more plain and bland, but that's really a result of the media creating that monster too. For example, Malik Neighbors and John Runyon Jr. so far this year have been giving great interviews, great press conferences, and Malik did one the other day, and then afterwards I saw a few articles online come up where they just kind of totally twisted what he said to try to make it a shot at Daniel, and ran that as the headline.
Wait, really? I didn't see that. Did they? I missed that.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
there were a few
there was one in particular. I was standing right, 3 feet away from Malik when he made this comment in the locker room after the game. And they basically, asked him something along the lines of why didn't you get the ball more or whatever? And he gave an answer that was I don't really know what's going on back there. And what he meant was, when they call hike, I'm running my route. I'm getting to where I need to be. I don't know what else is going on behind me.
Of course.
And all of the media took it as him
how
saying.
How else would you interpret that?
They took it as him saying, "Oh, I don't know what Daniel is doing back there," and that became a big headline all over.
So Brian, full disclosure, I had a death in the family over the weekend. I had a funeral yesterday, so I did not literally watch the game till this morning, and I did not read anything yesterday. I played that back. I appreciate that. I played that back on the post-game show on Sunday, and I actually said on the air, you guys can go back and look at it. It's on the Media Pass podcast feed right now. And I said, I thought Malik Neighbors handled that really well. I thought he gave really good, mature answers. I don't see how I'm surprised that people tried to make that seem that was a shot, because that was not by any means a shot.
No, it was by no means a shot. I can't say I'm that surprised that some people out there wanted to try to turn that into a shot. That doesn't surprise me. It certainly was not a shot.
I'm not even going to ask for who, because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And same here. I took it as what it was. Malik gave a very great, mature answer, tried to get into some of the actual, details that we would love to see as fans. But it's things like that when it gets twisted into a shot against, your teammates where, okay, now I wouldn't be surprised if Malik stops giving great answers and starts just, the canned, coach-approved answers. And I know John Runyon Jr. has been giving great interviews, too, and I'm just how long until something he says ends up getting twisted, and then he just crawls back into that just canned answer. So it just stinks. So I think, he had mentioned, too, you have to look at things holistically.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at those interviews holistically, too. There are reasons why the coaches, Joe Shane's antagonistic interview, too. Well, I don't want to say it was too antagonistic, but it was shorter, less cordial than we're used to seeing him. Yeah, but there are reasons why those things happen. When your answers continually get twisted into something that it wasn't for clicks and views, you're going to start giving these boring, canned, short answers, and it just stinks as a fan because you like to hear those detailed, good answers, but you also have to understand why they're not giving them.
No, no, 100%. I hear what you're saying. Appreciate the call. And I think that's even probably less local media than the other people or the aggregators who take part of a soundbite, put it online, and say it means something when it really doesn't. That's something else that happens too. That people will click things out of context, post them, and then they live forever too, right? It's back in the day, you see a quote in the paper, it's played on the radio, it disappears into the ether. Now, if someone posts something out of context, it lives forever, it takes on a life of its own, and then you have issues with that too. So, no, fair point. Fair
for
point.
Sure. And just, about Brian Daboll's, press conferences overall, I mean, literally since we got here from the first day of training camp, how often do you think Brian Daboll has been asked about whether or not Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback?
I don't even want to know.
It was literally at least twice a week, every single week throughout training camp, despite him giving the same exact answer every single time. We get to the start of the season. Daniel is a captain. Clearly, he is the starting quarterback going into week one. And yet he's still asked last week, is Daniel Jones your starting quarterback? Are you bringing any other quarterbacks in? At the end of the day, all these guys are humans. You can't help but get a little frustrated about getting the same exact question over and over and over and over again when it's only week one of the season. And how many times can you give the same answer to the same question and not get a little frustrated? So I don't blame, Coach Daboll if he does seem a little, stoic or harsh in those press conferences, because you can't help but get a little annoyed about having to answer the same exact thing over and over again. In those same press conferences, pretty much every single one, Brian Daboll will get a question and he will literally say, that's a great question. And he will give a long, in-depth answer talking about, various X's and O's part of the game. And those are great answers, but those get brushed over because all anyone wants to focus on is him, giving a short answer to the 17th time he's gotten the same question in a span of 5 weeks.
And the other thing he's just not going to give the answer to, this references to what I said previously, and he shouldn't, because it doesn't help the team, and that's really what you're trying to do here, right? He's never going to criticize a player's play publicly. I don't think I've heard him do that once since he's been here. Correct me if I'm forgetting something, but it's just something he doesn't do. He doesn't think it helps the team, and it frankly doesn't. unless you're trying to send a message to a player publicly to, get their head out of the sometimes you want to try to call them out publicly to get them to do that. But we have not seen Brian Dable do that. So after a really tough game, when really nothing goes well, you're just not going to have a lot of really good answers there because he's not going to want to hang out dirty laundry publicly. And I know it's frustrating. I get it. It makes it tough to write about it and all that stuff. I get it, but that's just the way he's going to handle it.
And before the game, he's just not going to reveal the team strategy.
That too.
Like,
Correct.
when reporters ask him, who's starting in this spot, who's playing, how much playing time is this guy going to get? What good does it give Brian Dable or the Giants to reveal this information before kickoff?
Let's go to John in Florida. John, what's going on?
Hey, guys. It's the first time I've called in.
Oh, thanks for calling and thanks for listening, man. What do you got?
Thanks, John.
Yeah, listen. Well, I've been a fan since 1958, long before you guys were born. Can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear, John. I'm listening.
All right. And probably out of the top 100, except anyone born probably before 58, I think I've seen just about every Giant player play. So I've listened to you guys for a few years, and I've wanted to call in a couple of times, but most of the time guys say a lot of the things I would have said. But now, after seeing the way things are going, and I have to say, I know it's only one game, but I'm really tired of hearing that. Because you should have been ready for that game. You should have been ready for top 100 offense, defense. And I'm giving these guys the benefit of the doubt, Shane and Dable. I thought they were great choices at the time. But in my opinion, it was a total blunder to sign Jones and franchise Barkley. I would have done the opposite. Jones only had the one decent year in 2022. You didn't extend his contract. You didn't take the fifth-year option. He had one decent year, and you throw him a 4-year contract worth $40 million. I just would have done the opposite. But that's me.
Well, John, I hear you, but just so you understand, the Giants basically offered Saquon the same, if not more, money than he got from the Eagles last year. I think I think that's what they wanted to do. No, but my point, though, John, is that might have been their preference. You know what I mean? We just don't know because they couldn't get Saquon to agree to a long-term deal, is my point.
Yeah, I blame him a little bit, too. For the little bit of money difference or whatever. Greed has gotten into the game a little bit. But whatever. If you wanted to be a Giant for life, he could have been. But that's another thing. Now, I just have a couple of questions. Who had the most wins as a quarterback last year for the Giants?
Tommy DeVito.
How many in a row?
3.
Who did he beat on a Monday night? And when was the last time we won a game at night at home or anytime?
No, you're not wrong.
Yep. Now, question: Did you? I don't live up there anymore. It's a shame. I used to live 20 minutes from there. But did you see him in training camp? Did he ever get a good chance to play with the ones?
He did during the spring in OTAs and minicamp. He did not during the summer. Daniel Jones took all the reps with the ones in the summer. Neither Locke nor DeVito got reps with the ones in the summer, but him and DeVito and Locke did split reps with the ones in the spring.
Yep.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Your opinion, because I'm not there. I'm just asking your opinion.
Of course.
How did he look in the spring?
I thought him and Locke looked very comparable. I don't think there was a huge difference between the two of them. Locke had a slow start in the spring as he was trying to learn this offense for the first time. The first couple weeks he was trying to figure things out. And I thought Tommy was slightly better than him early in the spring. But then I thought Locke caught up to him as he got a little bit better in the offense and he learned the system and everything. So I will say this, though, and John, you probably don't want to hear it, but in the summer, I thought it was pretty obvious watching practice that Daniel was the best quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to deal with the fact that DeVito, they kind of wasted $5 million to bring Locke in my opinion. Because if you think DeVito is an NFL quarterback, well, first of all, you wouldn't have kept him as the third quarterback because he would have been gone in an instant. Somebody would have grabbed him. So you had a backup. So in my opinion, that was a waste of $5 million. That's just my opinion. And I'm also sick of the cliches a lot of times. And I know Dable's never going to, say anything bad about players, as he shouldn't. But, every year is a different year. Every team has different players. And then I just look at Kansas City, San Francisco, Dallas, now the Detroit Lions. They go through the same thing every year, but every year they're right there. Every year. So basically, I don't know what's going on, but it's getting very, very, very frustrating. And I know we just made a change a couple of years ago, but if things don't go right, like you guys say, if you can't beat Washington in week 2, where's it going? And by the end of the year, I hate to say it, but there could be another change.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the call. Totally get your frustration, guys, but it's week 1. It's week 1. I get it. Neither Matt or I said any of you guys were wrong about your frustration. That game was not good.
We're all frustrated.
Correct, including the people in this building.
It hurts us when the Giants lose and don't play well either. Like, no one's happy.
No one's happy. But it is week 1. I understand your frustration. Totally get it. But let's see how this team rebounds in a division game against the Commanders this week, which is now a very, very important game. 3 things I forgot to mention when I went through my notes, because I think they're positives, all right? And I know people don't want to hear positives after 28-6. I get it. You want to hear it, but I waited to the last literally 2 minutes of the show, so here you go. On defense, Dane Belton, I thought, had a really nice pass breakup. In a zone coverage, he left the tight end, slid over, knocked away a pass that was headed for Jordan Addison that could have went for a first down. I thought Tyler Nubin was very good in the run game. Starting in that deep safety position, he came down on a couple of plays, got into the backfield, and disrupted the run game. And Jason Pinnock had a really nice pass breakup. The Vikings designed a little bit of a pick play on the right side in a bunch formation, and Deonte Banks got screened off, who I believe was Jordan Addison. Jason Pinnock, and it did not look like it was part of the play design, left his man, got over there, and prevented that deep throw. It looked like a little slot fade to Justin Jefferson down the left sideline for being completed. I thought that was good awareness. Those are 3 guys I thought made a couple really nice plays on defense.
Yeah, and I'll just say I was encouraged by the performance of the rookies on Sunday in their first NFL game. I mean, we spoke about Neighbors, and, you have heard how much I've been high on this draft class basically since the end of April, since the draft was over. But in addition to Neighbors, as you mentioned, I thought Nubin, especially for his first game starting, I thought he looked very solid back there. He looked comfortable, which is a big thing. And, great to see week 1. Drew Phillips, while he didn't play a ton, he clearly made an impact when he was on the field. First with that forced fumble. He was great in his, handful of coverage snaps. Was great in the run game. So those 3 especially. Theo Johnson, he did have a drop, but he had one bigger catch for 15, 16 yards. Had the most snaps of any tight end. Clearly is going to be a big part of this offense this year. I thought there was one clip I saw going around on Twitter of him in protection where he was helping out. I don't remember which lineman it was, but he was there to block. There was no one for him to block specifically, so he just turned around and completely leveled the Vikings defensive lineman, sent him on his behind. Encouraged by him, and Tyrone Tracy didn't really see the field much, but I was very high on him all summer. I thought he looked great in training camp. And Muasau, who got the start, interception in his first career game. So overall, I know, again, we don't want to harp too much on positives after a game like Sunday, but overall, I was just encouraged by the performance of the rookie class in their very first NFL game.
Yeah, we talked about how quickly Nubin could take that starting safety job from Dane Belton.
He already did it.
100% of the snaps.
Yeah.
For Tyler Nubin. Every snap, Jason Pinnock played 98%.
He could be looking at, the role that Xavier McKinney played last year on this defense.
Yeah, the only guys that played, and this will be the last thing we say before we say goodbye here, only guys that played 100% of the snaps on offense, the 5 offensive linemen, Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors. Theo Johnson was next highest, by the way, at 86%. Then on defense, Tyler Nubin, Bobby Okereke, Deonte Banks, and then again, Jason Pinnock was right behind them at 98%. Then you get Burns was at 87%, Thibodeau 75%, Dexter Lawrence was at 67%, a little bit lower than I thought. I guess Bowen's trying to keep him fresh and keep him rotating in and out, which I do not have a problem with. You have a fresh Dexter Lawrence in the fourth quarter of a close game. I like that combination. And those I thought were the significant snap counts for me. And Brian Dable did point out we saw Criddle Flott in the slot a lot in this game. He kind of indicated yesterday that might not be the case moving forward. Drew Phillips, as you mentioned, did not play a ton of snaps, only 16. I could see his role expanding a little bit going forward.
Yeah, and the very last thing, just because I feel like these guys never get any credit, I thought the special teams were great on Sunday.
How about that,
great special teams play?
It was like a relay race with the ball, trying to keep it at the 1 yard line.
Hot potato between 4 different guys, dropped him down on the 1. Jamie Gillen had 4 punts inside the 20. Gano connected on both of his field goal attempts, including a 50-yarder. We saw great coverage on the kickoff, on punt returns. Bryce Ford Whedon, I thought, looked great as the gunner. Why he, the big reason why he made this team. So we never really talk about special teams typically, unless it's for bad reasons, like a misplay, a big return from the other team. So just wanted to give those guys a little shout out because they deserved it from their play on Sunday.
Citak, good stuff. That's Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. For Matt, I'm Schmeelk. We'll see you next time, everybody.
This song goes out to my new best pal, PayPal. Now that I get 5% cash back with my PayPal debit card every month on the category I choose, my PayPal and I, we're going everywhere together because I want to pay with you everywhere. I pay with PayPal at the shoe store, the wind chime store, the .com store, all the stores. Oh, I don't just pay, PayPal.
Terms apply. See PayPal app. This card is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International, Inc.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.